All right. Good morning, everyone. Happy CarolinaCon. Happy Sunday. This is Matt. I am here with Wonky. We have been the designers for the past three CarolinaCon badges. We started with CarolinaCon 15. We made one for 16, but we didn't get to use it with the outbreak of the pandemic. We made the Hack the Pig badge last year for the first CarolinaCon online. And then we have designed this badge here. This is the CarolinaCon Online 2 badge. Let's see. We have a 555 timer right here for the blinking LED and the associated capacitor and resistors. We're going to try and have it so that the Discord general chat is on our screen here, so we can also field any questions about the CTF, about the badge itself, CarolinaCon, anything like that. We're happy to go ahead and discuss. All right, sweet. Everything is set up. We are ready to begin. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we came up with the design for this badge. So this year we had the theme of satellites, and we got some art commissioned for a satellite logo lit like this with some leaves growing on it. So once we had the logo made, we always start our process by starting in a vector program called Inkscape, where we take the logo that the artist gives it and we change it into the associated layers. So if you think of this PCB, it's actually about, I think, 7 layers if you really think about it. On the outermost layer, there is this solder mask, that is this blue color you see here. Then beneath that is copper, which appears as this silver, because I believe they put, what is the metal they put on that, Mike? I forget what that's called. Something. And then in the middle, there is fiberglass, which is what makes the badge so sturdy. And then repeat the process on the other side, copper, and then solder mask again. So to actually make this exposed copper here appear, we have to first tell the program, hey, we want there to be copper on all the areas here. And then we have to tell it, hey, we don't want there to be solder mask, because by default, it will put solder mask everywhere. And that's how we're able to get the exposed copper for the art on the front here. On the back, it's a bit simpler, because this is where we have all the traces for the actual circuit, and because we don't want to mess up the art on the front. Yeah, so in Inkscape, once we have the art and everything set up, we then use a plugin called SVG Desengine, which will then export this into a file that KiCad or KiCad, depending on who you ask, can read. And we actually go in with all the footprints and everything it has to actually wire up the circuit itself. And that's where we get everything on the back. This year, Wonky did all the handwriting on the back. I really love this idea. I think it's super, super unique. So I'm really happy with how that came out. All right, without further ado, we are going to go ahead and start soldering the badge. Again, I am looking at the general chat right now. So if anyone has any questions about the badge, the CTF, anything at all, we can go ahead and answer that. I think starting at around noon, we're going to go over the winner of the CTF, some closing remarks, things like that. But let's go ahead and get started. So I am heating up my soldering iron now and turning on my little DIY fume extractor. There we go. All right. So the very first piece we're going to solder in is the IC socket for the 555 timer. Is dip 8 for anyone that's familiar, because there are 8 little holes there, and dip because it is a through hole component. It doesn't just sit on top of the PCB, it goes all the way in. So we just place it in like that, and then we are ready to start soldering. Let me get my iron primed. I'm basically just putting a little bit of solder on the iron to kind of warm it up to get things ready, and then I'll go ahead and clean it off. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and just solder one of the pads first, just to get things started, because I want to make sure that the socket is soldered flat into the PCB. If you can see, it's at a little bit of an angle right now. And so what I'm just going to do is I'm going to push that with my thumb while heating up the one pad that we have right there to kind of flat, there we go, to get that centered nice in position. All right. And now I'll just solder the remaining pins. I'm at a bit of a weird angle with the camera here, so forgive me if this looks a little bit strange. Some initial ideas for this badge were very ambitious. We were talking about running Kubernetes on this thing by getting some Wi-Fi enabled chips. It was some pretty crazy stuff for the design process at first. Unfortunately, with the supply chain as it is right now, we wanted to make sure we could use parts that were easy to acquire. And in this situation, all of these are. So if anyone does go to shop.carolinacon.org, you can purchase our merch bundle this year. That comes with a shirt, a sticker, a shot glass, and one of these badges with all of the parts you need to go ahead and make your own. It is a great way to support the con. We really appreciate it. That's how we get the money to run the servers for the CTF and handle all the other expenses that we have running it. So that socket is in there. That's good. The next thing we're going to do is solder in the 3 resistors. So when you use a 555 timer like this, the 2 resistor values, specifically these 2 right here, are the ones that determine how quickly the timer is going to blink. So in this case, I wanted a long, slow blink, 1 second on, 1 second off. And I managed to cheese it by using a 220 and a 10K. Those are rounded values. It's very funny because after I ordered the parts for this, I saw a tweet where someone said, oh yeah, if you use rounded resistor values like this, it means you didn't do the math. And I did not do the math. I wung it and it worked. So they absolutely called me on that. And let's see. So right now I'm just getting that resistor in place. I'm going to add the next 220 ohm resistor here. Show off. I have one of our black Uber badges right here. Those are going to be given away as prizes. I'm not entirely sure yet. We think the CTF winner is going to get one in addition to our main CTF prize of that meteorite, that real meteorite. Let's see, and now we're going to add the last resistor. Again, if anyone has any questions, you can go into the general chat on our Discord or our Matrix server. Those are both synced together. And I'm happy to answer them if anyone has any questions about the badge, the CTF, or anything else that's going on before we announce the CTF winners coming up. All right, trying to get that in there, and it should be good to go. Both Wonky and I, we are not electrical engineers by trade. This is all self-taught. It's all just out of our own desire to work with this stuff. So it's always very interesting seeing our approach to it and the official approach whenever we come across it. Now that those resistors in place, I can just add a little bit of solder to the back of each pad here. And look at that. Those are some good connections. Right. All right. You guys can take a look. Got good connections there. So I'm going to go ahead and cut those off. I don't have my good snips for this, so I have to kind of use wire strippers to do it awkwardly. So forgive me if this isn't the prettiest trimming. Yeah, can't get those as short as I really want them to be, but that's fine. We'll just bend them over for now, and then when I do get my better snips at home, I can go ahead and cut these shorter. What? Oh my gosh, thank you. So ask and you shall receive. So now I've got the good snips. Here we go. Look at that. All right. So now we can see all those resistors are wired up right there. We try and have them blend in with the art this year. All right, the next piece we are going to solder in is the LED. This is polarized, so you can always tell the negative end of an LED by looking at the shorter bit of wire. I'm actually not sure what that's called, but the shorter one is always negative. So we can just insert that into the PCB right here. I'm going to do the same thing I did with the IC socket, where I'm just going to solder one of the legs, and then I'm going to straighten it out with my finger before I solder the other leg. Just enough solder in there. And I'll show you what I'm doing if I can here. I'm just heating up that little bit, and then with my thumb, I'm going in, I'm straightening it out. There we go. Now the LED is mostly not crooked. It's still a little crooked there. And that's what I'm going to try and fix that. There we go. That's about right. And now just to finish off those pads right there. There we go. I always tell people, don't be afraid to put the iron right on the PCB. You want to heat up the pad so the solder flows right to it. You don't want to worry about, trying to hot glue dribble the solder onto the circuit. That's never going to work to form a good connection. All right, let's go ahead and get the capacitor. This is 120 microfarads. Picking capacitors is tricky because there's a million different kinds, and it's always fun to try and figure out which one is the best one for this particular project, from the price, from the actual size, to constraints on, is this component in stock and will we be able to get it in time for the con, all of that fun stuff. And the other thing is they really absorb heat. I had to leave the iron on that for a bit more than usual just because they will suck up so much of the heat and take away the heat from the actual PCB where we need it to be. But looking at that, that's soldered on great. So I can get the other leg there. Capacitors also polarized, so we had to use the shorter leg here and the negative spot on the PCB. There we go. So that looks pretty good to me. Go ahead and trim that now. Okay. All right, things are coming along well. We are almost done. The last piece we have is the battery pack. So let me go ahead and get that. AA batteries are a little bit overkill for this project. They'll power this one LED for, I think it's a week or so. It's a very long time. This is the double-sided adhesive that we use to adhere the battery pack to the PCB. We bought this last year for the CarolinaCon online badge for $10, and this is still how much we have left. We expect to be able to use this for many years to come. And in the process, we had to learn the official 3M data sheets and levels for adhesiveness, because the stuff we bought originally wasn't sticky enough. And so we had to go through their process to find out what is their stickiest roll, and this is it. All right, so I am just putting the double-sided adhesive on the back of the battery bank. Removing this. Actually, I'm going to cut the power wires to length before I peel off the adhesive and stick it. So in this case, the wires are very short for this badge. That's because we wanted to make this badge a little bit smaller than usual. So here, I'm going to cut the wire to length and just remove just a smidge of this sheathing to expose the wires. Whenever you have this multi-threaded wire like this, I really don't want to cut off too much because you can easily fray in a lot of situations. All right. Now I'm just going to go ahead and twist the ends here and then bend them down so they will stay in place in the PCB when I want to solder them. And now I will remove the adhesive backing. Go ahead and center this onto the badge itself. Perfect. That's not going anywhere. And I left a little bit of extra room for these wires. That might make it a little bit tricky to try and solder them in place here. But let me go ahead and bend them and get those ready to solder right now. There we go. That can work. That's going to stay in place. All right, let me go ahead and solder that in place. Here's the one component where we're going to burn the sheathing on the wire just a little bit. It's pretty much impossible not to, but that's okay. That's okay. There we go. We got a pretty good solder connection there. All right, now repeat the process for the black wire. Oh, it's being a little bit tricky. It doesn't want to stay in. No, that's fine. That's fine. Maybe I just convince it a little bit. A little bit of convincing will get it there. Let's see. There we go. A little bit of convincing for my other hand. There we go. Now, just to finish up that joint. There we go. All right, that's not a bad connection. Not the worst I've ever seen. Let me go ahead and cap that off on this side. Perfect. All right, and with that, we have fully assembled this year's badge. Let's go ahead and pop in a battery and give it a try. So first, let me get the last component, the 555 timer. There's a circular notch in the top of this one. We want to line that up so it's facing up on the badge. All right, that goes in the socket just like so. And now I've got some spare AAA batteries. Hey, it worked on the first try. We can now see the antenna on the side light here is blinking that nice steady red every 1 second. All right, just like that. This year's badge is pretty simple to assemble. That took, what was that, less than 20 minutes to get that done. And everything is working great. Okay. Well, thank you very much for listening. Again, badge is made by myself, Matt, and Wonky. We're very happy to answer any questions. If anyone has any or any other discussion, feel free to message us on Discord or Matrix. But if not, thank you so much. We will get back to you with the CTF winners and our closing remarks and everything else coming very soon.